Imagine sharing your deepest pain with a trusted loved one, a friend, a family member, and you share your personal struggles that are happening within your home, within your marriage, maybe the despair that you are living, to only be told, well, clearly you need to learn how to communicate better, or you must have an intimacy problem, or maybe you're gay. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. Victim blaming is not just hurtful, it's devastating. It silences the victim and strengthens the hold that the abuser already has on you. And today, I'm talking to those victims who not only are victims of covert narcissistic abuse, but are victims of victim blaming from the world around them. But I'm also talking to those of you out there who just don't quite get it, and you end up doing the victim blaming, maybe even accidentally. So victim blaming statements are things like, well, then why were you married? If you hated to be near them or hated to be around them, why don't you just leave? Or statements like, this is a you problem. Maybe you're just being dramatic. I've even heard, it never occurred to you to just communicate with your husband? Why don't you just tell him? You think I didn't think of that? You think I didn't try that for how many years? Another statement would be something like, well, maybe you shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. Maybe you don't actually love them. You see, when you finally muster the courage to share what you've been living with someone and you find someone you believe is going to be supportive, but these are the responses you get, what happens is you just shut up. It drives you even further into the isolation and loneliness and despair that you're already living. Instead of empathy and understanding, you hear accusations, judgments, dismissiveness. You've already been living that. You don't need it from the world around you. This is the last thing that you need. You find yourself feeling like no one understands. No one gets it. No one cares. But I'm here to tell you that I care. I get it. I see you. I hear you. I've been there. And I've experienced victim blaming as well, not only back in my marriage, but still now. I recently created a podcast episode about intimacy issues. And if you missed that one, go back and take a look at it. But if you can, jump on the social media and look at some of the responses I've gotten from this post. These responses are full of victim blaming. See, I was open and vulnerable and raw, just like I am so many times on this podcast. And I was honest about what I've experienced within my marriage. And so many people resonated with what I discussed, like, so often ends up happening. People were so glad that I'm sharing these words and putting things to words. But a lot of those positive feedback I get is from private communication. Why? Because of this very thing. They're afraid of the victim blaming that happens. While many of the responses, even on social media, were from those who resonate with my story, there were many who clearly don't get it. And they came after me instead. Now, I know this is from people who don't get it. They haven't lived it and they don't understand, and I get that. But why are they so quick then to throw the blame at me? I will say that I did appreciate one lady's response to multiple people. She just kind of went through and responded to quite a few of them and said, hey, be grateful that you don't get it, but stop judging. You see, victim blaming occurs when others hold the victim responsible for the abuse, or when they minimize the effect of the abuse or the experiences that this person has gone through. It often stems from a lack of understanding, but it comes in different forms. It can be dismissiveness, judgmental comments, blaming statements. It can be insults, even derogatory statements, accusations, generalizations, minimizations, all of these words. Okay, these are different forms of victim blaming. So I want to give you some examples that I actually experienced on my social media stuff. Dismissive and invalidating statements. Here's a few examples. This is a you problem. Good grief, stop complaining. I get it. You're not happy. Please just get a divorce and move on. It can't be that bad. You're complaining about that? Let me tell you what I went through. All of these comments dismiss what the person who is trying to share their story or share their pain and be open, this dismisses all of that. Like, it just shuts the conversation down and puts you in a place where instead of getting support, you're fearing further pain. So you just retreat into silence, further isolating the victim. All right. One thing that victims of covert narcissistic abuse are already dealing with is self-doubt. You've had years of gaslighting and manipulation, so comments like, well, this is your problem, or why don't you just leave? That just amplifies the self-doubt that you're already experiencing. It just adds to the internal conflict that's already there, causing you to question even more your own experiences and your own decisions. So you find yourself wondering even more. Well, maybe it isn't that big of a deal. Maybe I am seeing it wrong. Maybe I need to work more on me. How about judgmental statements? Well, then why are you married? If you are that unhappy, why don't you just leave? If you feel this way, why have you stayed? Why did you wait all of these years? These statements do not help a victim of covert narcissistic abuse. To people who say this, I want to respond, have you ever considered that I didn't want to get divorced? Did you ever think that the marriage didn't start this way? This was a gradual change. This was an experience I had never had before. I didn't know how to make sense out of it. And I was in this for life. Marriage is something worth fighting for, and I wasn't going to just throw it away. So why did I wait all of those years? Because I was still in it for the fight. I still wanted this marriage. I didn't throw a party when the divorce was final. I didn't buy champagne or go on a fancy trip. No, I went home and I cried. This isn't what I wanted. Other judgmental comments are, well, why didn't you just communicate with your husband? Really? You don't think I tried? I got comments like, well, it never occurred to you to just communicate with him? Or use your big girl words and tell him how you feel. Somebody actually put that on the post. Use your big girl words and tell him how you feel. I tried so many times to talk to him this way or that way. We come up with 100 different ways to say something. The problem is not that I needed to communicate more. The problem was that the communication was broken. If I've got a walkie-talkie and I'm communicating into my walkie-talkie, but the receiver over there is broken, I don't care if I use more words or if I use my big girl words, it still isn't going to work because the problem is the other walkie-talkie is broken. Talking more into the walkie-talkie is not going to fix the problem. This is not just a misunderstanding. This is not just a lack of communication. And when you throw out comments like that to a person who's already been dealing with covert narcissistic abuse, it causes them again to retreat back into the silence, fearing further judgment. It isolates them and it prevents them from seeking the help that they so badly need. How about insulting comments? Yeah, I got a bunch of those too. I got things like, oh, shut up, you're a drama queen. You had a husband with a brain like that? You're a narcissist. I even got told I'm not a woman. Really? And I got told that I'm gay. Are you kidding me? That's what you took away from this episode? Let's talk about the accusations that come out. I got told things like, you're afraid of intimacy. Something must have happened to you. Or you have a basic problem with sexuality. You need help. You talk as if we're all supposed to feel sorry for you. It's all about you. What's wrong with you? She never truly loved her husband, but she wanted the benefits without giving anything in return. Really? I gave so much in that marriage. And these are the accusations that get thrown out. That I'm the one with the hidden motives. That I'm the one with the problem. Again, more examples of victim blaming. Generalized criticisms, things like, well, women expect too much from a marriage, always blaming men for their mental issues. Men don't do the mental gymnastics that a woman does in her mind. This BS right here is why men need to stop dealing with crazy women. Dear men, don't ever get married. I hate comments like this. You know why? Because this is not a gender issue. There are many men who are living this as well. I have never once attacked men or gone after men. This is not the issue here. Dr. Ramani recently said that covert narcissism is showing up as being 50-50 in male and female. The last examples I'm going to give are minimizing statements. When people minimize your experience when you're trying to talk to them. Things I heard were, buy a bigger bed. Just roll over. Get your own room. Sleep alone. Sleep in another room. It's so sad that people don't value their own sleep and sanity. Look, these simple solutions don't work with a covert narcissist, and they don't help. It isn't about the bed. It's about the relationship. And I'm not moving in the bed because of the reactions that I would get from him. Going and sleeping in another room is just going to add a whole nother layer of reaction. Another minimizing response is when they start correcting your grammar. When the grammar Nazis come out, you're onto something here. I got told, lie, not lay. Really? That's what you're focused on? You're missing the entire point of what I'm talking about. And I'm going to tell you within my own marriage that my covert narcissistic husband corrected my grammar many times, missing the point of what I was talking about. I've had people tell me that I need to get a haircut, or that I need to put on makeup, or they make fun of some shirt that I'm wearing. Okay, whatever. Again, you are missing the point. If this is your takeaway, then you clearly have no idea what I'm talking about, and you can be grateful for that. I get told, well, it sounds like she's reading from a book. It's a rehearsed message, so it must be fake. Okay, I want to address this. Do I practice my messages ahead of time? Yes. Do I make notes to keep myself on track and my thoughts organized? Yes. Is there anything wrong with this? No. Is it still my story? 100%. Is it real? Sadly, yes. One last statement that I do want to address. At least you have a partner. I've been alone for 3 years. When you're sharing your story and what's going on in your world, and the person responds to you by, well, let me tell you how bad it is in my life. I want you to know, I want that person to know, this isn't about you right this minute. I can hate that you are alone or that you haven't had a relationship for 3 years. I can be compassionate, yes. But right in this moment, when I'm opening up about what I'm going through, this isn't about you. Yet so many people do this to each other. I've caught myself in that and had to go, whoa, okay, I've just minimized their experience. The mindset that my problem is bigger than yours, so you need to shut up and listen to me? No, that has to go away. When somebody is opening up to you and being honest about what's going on in their life and being raw and vulnerable, that's the time to listen. Statements like, well, you're just complaining, or why don't you communicate better? Invalidate that person's emotions and experiences, making them feeling invisible and misunderstood. Now, why do people victim blame? Because they're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable with the complexity of what you're trying to describe. They're uncomfortable with the reality that there's abuse going on. They're uncomfortable that, someday maybe this could happen to them. And so they simplify it. They simplify it by blaming you, by throwing their personal beliefs onto you. So projection is part of this. But also as a way for them to maintain control over their world. You see, if they think, well, if the victim had just done this or thought that or worked on this, then none of this would have happened to them. Then it reassures them that they can avoid similar situations. If you've been faced with victim blaming, I want you to hear this. It's not your fault. You are not to blame for the abuse that you have endured. The responsibility lies solely with your abuser, not with you. Victim blaming only adds to the wounds of those who are already suffering, and it's time to change that. Let's be the ones who listen without judgment, who validate rather than criticize, and who offer compassion instead of blame. Together, we can create a world where survivors feel seen, heard, and supported. Thank you for listening today. If this episode resonates with you or helps you to understand victim blaming better, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And as always, know that you are not alone on this journey. Healing is possible, and you are worthy of the peace that comes with it. Your story matters. You deserve to be heard without judgment. If you're ready to take the next step forward in healing, check out my coaching services at covertnarcissism.com. I am here, I do get it, and I want to help. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes like this one as well. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime. You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.